Everybody will call the May broadband meeting to order. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Ms. Glover is absent. Mr. Green?
Present.
Councilman, Mr. Hugel?
Present.
Ms. Hughes?
Present.
Mr. Tillage?
Present.
Mr. Walker?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes.
Yes.
So it's been a minute since we had the last session. Are there questions, comments about the minutes, or we have a motion to accept?
Move for approval.
Okay, second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you?
Yes, sir. Ms. Glover is absent. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Hugel?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and so now we've gotten to maybe the most important thing on the agenda from my perspective, and that's election of officers.
Yes.
We have two positions to fill, chair and vice chair. I'll ask for a nomination for chair.
As the longest standing member on
I would like to nominate Ron Green as the chair.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I second.
I appreciate all of this.
He seems like a stand-up guy. I'm into it.
Any discussion? Hearing none? Madam Clerk, we could vote?
Yes, sir. Ms. Glover is absent. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Ms. Hughes?
Aye.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now we need a nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Jennifer.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none? Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Ms. Glover is absent. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Hugel?
Aye.
Ms. Hughes? You can vote yourself.
Oh, I can vote for myself?
Yeah.
Can I vote against myself?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
And Mr. Walker?
Yes.
And who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I relinquish the gavel to our new chair. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Do we have updates and
Congratulations.
discussion?
Yeah. It's nice meeting you as well.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
And at this point in the agenda, we'll kind of provide you with updates to where we are with regards to our local ring, our regional ring, and how that plays into the connectivity of our overall strategy throughout the region. My name is Cliff Hayes. I am the Chief Information Officer in the city, and by virtue of what you do as an authority, the city manager has the authority of the day-to-day operations of providing support to the authority, and as we map out the actual local ring, as well as the manager is the voting member for the regional Southside Network Authority, and I am the alternate for that. And our legal representation on a daily basis is Ms. Kelsey Swearinga with the City Attorney's Office as well. And Madam Clerk, next slide. All right, what we do, as I mentioned to you before, is provide support for the authority, and today's agenda, that everything that we do, we try to operate, not try, we operate in a fashion in which we follow the direction of the city manager, who works very closely with the council, and the council has set forth what the mission statement and the vision of the city will actually be, and we follow that. In a nutshell, it's important that we emphasize the core values of the city, and you'll see through the vision as well as the mission statement, values of inclusion, innovation, and economic growth as important key factors that we pay close attention to and follow. Next slide. I'd like to also take this time to introduce you to Mr. Jeff Biku, who is a well sought after broadband strategist. He was key in the initial development of the regional connection ring strategy back in 2018. In other words, this whole initiative around the region, 5 cities of the South Side have come together to be a part of the regional ring, and that's separate and apart from our local ring, in which this authority is directly involved with. Mr. Biku actually created the master plan for the overall regional ring, and he works very closely with us on a weekly basis on the development and the initiatives that we have going forward with our local broadband ring that we have here in the city. Mr. Biku.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, nice to see everyone today. I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of me every month. I'm glad we're having another authority meeting. It's been a while. Just want to touch on a few things Cliff talked about. So yes, we were instrumental in designing the regional connectivity ring. Started off in 2017. We finished a master plan in 2018 December, and then it was funded, and since then it's been being built. The RCR is a key fiber network for the whole Hampton Roads area. Ultimately, it will transverse over into all 17 localities. And it's, it did what it's supposed to do. It's creating a lot of competition among providers in all the different cities. I remember when we just started in 2017. You were paying $10,000 for 2 gigabits of speed, and now it's reversed. You're getting 10 gigs for close to $1,000 for speeds. And just to give you a little idea of cost avoidance, when we talk about cost avoidance, what you're currently paying and on a monthly for VoIP for broadband services, connecting all your anchor institutions together, that's quite a bit of money. Once you start looking at getting your fiber network connected, and you save that amount of money, that's your cost avoidance model that actually will go back into the city. IoT integration, we do a lot of IoT integrations with cities, Hampton, Virginia Beach, a lot of northern neck counties for smart sea level rise, storm sense, you name it. And we also do a lot of ADA compliance and making sure that the cities are complying with the federal government requirements. Next slide, please. So some of the stuff we did for Virginia Beach, and actually we're doing here in Portsmouth, is areas that need Wi-Fi. This actually started when COVID came around. There was areas by schools, libraries, where we ended up putting smart poles down with Wi-Fi access that students were able to, and parents were able to drive up and were able to get online. Security cameras, now we're using those smart poles to add security cameras, weather sensors, security camera upgrades, SCADA networks. You guys familiar with SCADA networks? It's all your water treatment services. We do all that. And for Portsmouth, we started working on some camera deployments. We've actually put cameras in the Naval Museum, going back into the Real-Time Crime Center. We've done 3-4 different locations with the police department. And we also are looking at integrating some cameras into City Park. Next one, please. It's a few. I'm not sure if you guys see the picture on the right-hand side. That's a view from a camera we put in at the Rivers Casino. Sorry, technology. So that's a view from Rivers Casino. Actually, if you look in, zooming in on that, that was a problem area. And you can, with that PTZ camera we put in there, you can zoom in directly and see the whole front of the mini mart. So yeah, this town center in Virginia Beach, we did a project where the Pavilion by Ruth Chris, they were having a lot of issues with vandalism. They wanted cameras in there, but to put cameras to connect it up to the fiber would have cost over $300,000. We designed a network utilizing 60 gigahertz wireless connectivity from on top of the Westin, and we were able to do the whole project, put 6 cameras down at that pavilion, going back into the Genetec system for less than $30,000. So saved quite a bit of money. Next one. That's actually a picture of one of the smart poles in Mount Trashmore. That's actually a self-contained off-grid pole. The wrap is solar. In that top cone, there is actually a Wi-Fi access point that goes back, and a 5G modem that goes back to the cloud. And there's also a PTZ camera. That pole was actually caught when there was a shooting in Virginia Beach about 3 months ago. That was the pole that actually caught and was able to give the police some information on who actually did the shooting. So, and we also retrofit some of the existing poles. Why this is all important? Again, this is all off grid. It doesn't hook up the power. It saves a lot of money, and those solar, solar is a way to go sometime in remote areas. Next one. And that's it. Any questions? No. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Following back up, picking back up before Jeff came in, I was touching on the regional connection ring that we have. As I said before, it began back in 2017 as a regional fiber backbone effort. Portsmouth joined with other Southside cities to ensure shared high-speed infrastructure through public-private partnerships. The fiber ring around the entire region is a 119-mile-long network with 288 strands and is scheduled to be completed by March of 2026. The ring also connects to the transatlantic subsea cables, providing access to Europe and Africa. The Southside Network Authority leases 96 strands of the 288 strands to GTS, which is Global Technical Systems, for the operations management and marketing. Discussions are ongoing to extend the fiber ring through the bridge tunnels to the peninsula cities as well. And then hopefully more expansion will be made westward for the other Hampton Road cities going forward. Next slide. Each city receives 6 dedicated fiber strands for its use. Portsmouth can apply these strands to public safety, computer-aided dispatch systems, shared digital city applications, as well as academic partnerships that we've already established. Some of the potential uses of the 6 strands: for example, Portsmouth benefits from the regional storm sense network by accessing shared data and forecasts, which inform the city's flood mitigation strategies and emergency preparedness plans as well. These real-time data systems are important. Say, for instance, in these examples that I've given for emergency preparedness, you might be aware that the route for emergency evacuation includes parts of North Carolina, right? So a lot of times you'll get these updates about who should be evacuating in the region. Well, those folks in the Outer Banks get usually their notice to evacuate before we do. And they are a part of our evacuation plan. So they hop on our roads, and the evacuation route is coming up 168 and connect on 64 and head out west to 460. And if all of those folks get word first, which they do, and they hop on it when it's time that they say in Hampton Roads, including us in Portsmouth, to hop on and evacuate, then of course all of those other folks are already on the road. So it's important for us to know in real time what we're facing when we get that notice and it's time to evacuate. Next slide. This slide depicts the regional 119-mile fiber ring that goes around each of the 5 cities that are partners in this ring. Portsmouth's ring actually sits around this area here. So just so you'll get perspective, we have this 119 miles here around the entire region. And then internal to that is another network, which is the one that you all are the authority to have direct communication and leadership around. Next slide. Also, as I mentioned, you have the regional connection ring, you have the local ring that we have, you'll have here referenced as the NGN, the Next Generation Network. But then, of course, you heard earlier that the strategy when this agreement was put together, this partnership of the 5 cities originally, was to also get access to these super fast, high capacity cables, subsea cables that are connecting in Virginia Beach, right? And then what ultimately this is to do is to create a global internet hub between Richmond and Hampton Roads. So you'll hear references going forward to RVA 757. When you hear that, you know it's talking about this high-speed capacity here in Hampton Roads. Eventually, hopefully, the strategy is to connect it to the Richmond region. Next slide. The Next Generation Network's mission is to unify the city's facilities through a modern fiber backbone, reduce telecommunications costs, and support digital equity, and provide internet service providers with leasing opportunities. Again, Portsmouth's local ring is an asset for not only cost avoidance, which it is, but it also offers potential for revenue generation, which we'll touch on just a little later. Our local ring throughout the city of Portsmouth is developed in a total of 55 miles of fiber around the city and other connections to what we call community anchor institutions, government buildings, our schools, and other strategic locations by the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, etc. This will deploy the cables of some 144 strands to accommodate current needs and future expansion. Next slide. Our community anchor institutions are a focal point of the next generation network expansion. We are actively mapping out the full network, aiming for 10 gig capacity. You may have heard Mr. Biku reference earlier that through our private ISPs today, we have contracted where it's up to 1 and 2 gigs in most of our locations. And the fine print, it says up to. Very seldom do we see those kinds of speeds. However, going forward, once we get our own network built out, you will see 10 gig speeds for a fraction of the cost. And I'll show you an example of what we can anticipate and expect going forward. Next slide. The map that you just saw also prioritizes the redundancy and emphasizes the redundancy of our coverage as well. And we will begin connecting our facilities, and we're planning for an additional 10 facility connections by the end of this calendar year. Next slide. So currently, what we have are 3 strategic locations that are utilizing our fiber, our local ring with high-speed connectivity even now, with fiber connections even now. Our 206 building on High Street, you may notice, is, I guess, a welcoming center, as well as our police administration in that facility. We have our 311 building, which is our emergency operations center, our fire department administration. That's another location, which is here. And then our 700 Port Center property, which is here. Also, a strategic location for public safety. You can, next slide. The next generation network will improve broadband availability and reliability citywide. It's to attract businesses, enhance services like telehealth and education, as well as promote economic growth. We're aligning closely with our Portsmouth Economic Development Authority to market these advantages, and we're working very closely with them even now for some ideas, some interests that they have been approached by as well as we have. Next slide. You recall earlier we referenced one of the purposes for this is for cost avoidance. And of course, an example that we might give is, let's just say, for the sake of the example, 56 of our community anchor institutions, being the example that we're using, at $1,000 roughly is what we're paying a month for that internet connectivity. So for 1 month, right now, we're paying $56,000 for internet connectivity for those 56 community anchor institutions. Annually, that means we're spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $672,000. And over 10 years, that'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6.7 million over 10 years. That's the current spend. But once we get our strategy in place with our own backbone, our fiber connectivity, our next generation network tie-in, those same 56 sites, you can see the difference today of $56,000 a month. For all of those sites, we'll be paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,800, which is going to be providing redundancy. So $600 a month one way, and then to return that back to the city, a total of $1,800 a month. Annually, we're talking $21,000 as opposed to $672,000. And then over the 10-year period, we're we were forecasted to spend $6.7 million over 10 years. Now it would be $2.1 million. So you can see the savings over 10 years by us investing in this asset for the city. The other focus we were on was to generate revenue coming back to the city. Now, part of that presentation probably is more great information for our council members to realize that good that's coming back to the city. We have already begun to realize some of those opportunities because the way that the local ring has been built, we have excess capacity in the conduit so that if there's ever an opportunity, somebody's interested in being a part of our local ring here, we can provide them access to run their fiber through our conduit, or we have extra strands of fiber that we can lease out to them. And one of the first opportunities we've had is that regional ring that you heard me speak of before. They had a challenge. They had to try to connect somehow from Portsmouth to get to Norfolk through the Midtown Tunnel. And in order to do that, they have to go to the West Norfolk Bridge. Well, they would have had to go to VDOT, and who knows how long that process would have taken for them to negotiate, and who knows what the costs would have been. Well, we negotiated with the regional organization to say, well, we'll put a value on coming across by providing you with some of our excess conduit for a price. And so the regional organization paid back to the city of Portsmouth for, as an in-kind, $1.3 million. And that has already been realized, and we have that money in the bank now. For opportunities for leased fiber, so we have the certain strands that the city uses for its purpose, but some extra strands are now available. And we'll begin to, as I said before, market those strands. The city council has set the rate for that purpose, and it's $450 per strand per linear mile for interested parties if they want to lease parts of our local ring. The parts that we have available that literally cross bridges we'll lease for $900 per linear mile per month in order to have those. And so we've had some conversations, and I can tell you there's a lot of interest in the local ring that we have in place even to today. Next slide.
Mr. Hayes, if I can, looks like there might be a typo on there on your on the Portsmouth estimated side. If the monthly and annual numbers are right, yeah, over there, your 10-year would just be $216,000.
Not 2 point.
Yeah, so even better,
So it's even better.
much better.
Yep, thank you. In addition to the commitment that the city has been making towards our build out, we also seek out grant opportunities to help us fund the last mile. So what you see in the local ring that we have is for the middle mile, to build out the actual infrastructure itself to reach to strategic areas within the city. The interest and ultimate goal is to actually get the fiber to destinations and to final doors, and that's done by getting it to the last mile. The federal government has offered funding to states, some $4.2 billion around the country. Virginia's share of that was $1.48 billion, that the state received. And so each locality, in partnership with internet service providers, are able to apply for those funds. And we are right in the middle of that process right now. They have not announced what those awards are to the cities, so we're waiting from the Department of DBHCD, who manages that fund for the state, waiting to hear what our award will be. Next slide. BEAD stands for the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. That's the official name of that fund for the states and for the localities. The Federal Broadband Deployment Program is a historic investment. As I said before, Virginia received $1.48 billion, and Portsmouth is pursuing our last mile support to ensure that all eligible residences as well as institutions are connected. Next slide. Round one of the BEAD applications focused on bulk submissions of 190 locations in Portsmouth, including unserved and underserved areas. In other words, there are many locations that had no broadband connectivity. Those were the unserved areas. And then, of course, there are what are referred to as underserved areas, where they might have access to internet, but their speeds are inadequate. Next slide. Round two covers individual applications for the remaining 75 locations. Together, both rounds aim to close the digital divide all across the city. Next slide.
Go to the next one.
That one right there. Yep, you're good. So the way that this works is that BEAD grant process, they announced way in advance, close to a year in advance, to the public, that any internet service provider who's interested and you partner with a city, you will get 10 points towards your grant application. The grant is actually awarded to the ISP, and it's considered favorable in their review, if they're literally partnering with the city. We had 3 internet service providers who contacted the city and asked for a letter to be sent with their application so that they could take advantage of that opportunity. Those were Cox, Verizon, and GTS. Then in addition to that, you had 10 providers who did not necessarily ask for a letter from the city, so they said, we don't need those 10 points. We are just committed to the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're going to be ready to deploy last mile across the entire state. And that's what those 10 providers are in the second bullet. Next slide. All right, in the best interest of time, we'll hit another. Next. The Digital Equity Act focuses on affordability, digital skills, and device access. We encourage folks to go to this website to actually fill out the survey so that your data can actually be included in Virginia's official recordation for the city of Portsmouth. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And for the purpose of the new authority that we have and the new members, we will invite you to provide ideas about what information you'd like to see us research, and that could potentially be a part of our agenda going forward for information for our authority members. Some of the ideas or potential topics for the future: economic development and our next generation network deep dive. Two, a speaker from the Virginia Broadband office to come and share with us about future funding programs, as well as BEAD grant writers, the Digital Opportunity Plan presentation and community partners, and then of course any topics of interest from our members of this authority. Just please let us know of any ideas that you might have or interest in topics being covered. Next slide. And at that point, we just open up for any questions that you might have. I'm sorry?
Are there any questions or comments? Sir.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Mr. Hayes, back on, I guess it's slide 17, the current expenditure versus future expenditures. So how far along are we in the implementation, and when are we going to be in a position to reach the implementation so that we're paying $21,000 per month, annually, instead of $670,000? Is that this coming year, 2 years, 3 years? How far down the road are we? To get the right-hand side implemented?
And, yes, sir. This is only a portion of our entire, this was just for sake of an example.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually going to be more than this example once it's fully built out. But that would be 56 sites that we're talking about here. Today, we have 3 sites that are connected. By the end of the year, we'll have 10. And then the next year, a full plan will be designed and put forward to show the phases of how many per year that we're actually building out until we get to the 120-something sites, community anchor institutions that we plan. So I know you're looking for an exact date, but right now that number is not available.
Yeah, okay. So what I heard, though, was we're working on a plan to map how quickly we can get to everything is connected.
Yes, sir.
When will you have the plan ready to show the timing for all the connections?
All of that will be, the plan itself should be ready by the spring of next year, by March of next year.
It seems like a long time from now to put together a plan.
Well, we're working on the plan as we speak.
Okay. Is it you and your folks that are building the plan, or do you have
So let me defer to Mr. Biku.
Yeah.
Will that plan be available prior to March of next year?
Yeah, we're actually sort of, the plan is, we'll have it ready with the next, by the end of this year. We just have to, there's a lot of surveying you have to look at. You have to look at how much fiber goes from the middle mile to the last mile, put a cost analysis together. That's why it takes a little while. It's just not something that can be done quickly.
Okay. So could we ask for a plan for the plan?
Sure. We'll have a plan for the plan by next authority meeting.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Next question. So BEAD. I think we hit this 1,000 years ago the last time we met. So BEAD is different from digital equity. So BEAD funding goes to the ISPs, not to the city.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so if you can flip to the the list of folks who are the ISPs that are applicable to Portsmouth. Okay, so now we got 10 plus 3, 13 ISPs that are potential Portsmouth winners. When does that decision get made on which ISPs are Portsmouth winners?
So let's clarify that a little bit. So
Okay.
Cox, Verizon, and GTS were the ones that put in letters with the city, right? It basically says, look, we want to work with the city, which they will get 10 more points of favoritism when the application comes in. There's already been provisional awards that companies have gotten that said, you have X amount of money coming your way, right? It's between Spark, Cox, and Verizon that they've got provisional awards that says they have X amount of money that's been awarded through the BEAD program. The other 10 providers you see over there, I would not worry about them because all they did was just put in a blanket application throughout this coast of Virginia, like, Northern Neck, this area. They're not going to get anywhere because they're not local. The only person that will probably end up getting some of that is SpaceX for the areas that the other providers are not covering.
Okay, so then we'll focus on Cox, Verizon, and Spark GTS. So now they have money. What's that money allowing them to do for Portsmouth?
So there were 75 locations that were classified that BEAD allocated as unserved, right? So that means those 75 locations are now classified unserved. They can now build fiber and build connections from their network to get to those buildings, and the cost is covered. Now, typically the cost is around $25,000 maximum per homes passed for an unserved connection. Sometimes the DHCD will allow a little more, but just use that. The maximum $25,000 times 75 is how much money that they will allocate towards Portsmouth for building fiber networks.
And that doesn't have anything to do with our ring. That's Cox has service to a point, and now they've been given money to add
Expand it out,
service
yes.
to places that don't have Cox.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have to be aware as the authority, Spark GTS, since they are the ones that's working with the regional SNA, they're going to have some favoritism among Hampton Roads for getting that connections done.
And I'll add to that to say, even though we've identified certain community anchor institutions that we're trying to run to, these ISPs see also the opportunity for more customer base. So while they're trying to connect our community anchor institutions and they're running fiber to get to those specific locations, guess what? They see opportunities to get fiber and those high-speed connections to neighborhoods and homes and businesses all along the route. Then layered on top of that, irrespective of these three that are applying for the BEAD funding, there are other ISPs that are investing and contacting us. I've received communication where people want to, regardless of BEAD, come and begin to build out their own fiber because they see the potential here in the city as well. They're not even going after the state BEAD funding grants. They're just willing to invest their own by building out their own fiber network and reaching, across the city. So there's tremendous competition and benefits because it's actually driving down the cost for us, you can see. So what that's also going to mean to the public and businesses is that cost is also going to be driven down. And on top of that, 10 times the speeds, right? more reliability, because we're talking fiber now. We're not talking about people trying to connect via cellular signals or Wi-Fi, but actual fiber connections direct to the last mile, right up to the door.
Okay.
So what I think happened and what we will get an answer on in the next couple weeks is DHCD probably awarded certain unserved locations to Cox, Verizon, and Spark. This way, all three of them will actually get a zip code that they can work and build out their network. The city has nothing to do with it. They're going to build out their network, build out their fiber, and activate and take those customers and service them with fiber.
Okay. And then regarding the Digital Equity Act funding, so the city applied for a grant, and I guess we're going to use that money to create the official City of Portsmouth Digital Opportunity Plan.
Correct.
What is that?
So this BEAD funding and this money not only is for the infrastructure itself, but because we're creating an environment encouraging more use of going online and using these digital assets and the internet for your daily lives, then we want everybody to be educated about the use of the internet, how to use it, how to utilize this high-speed connectivity and all types of internet use. You heard me earlier give examples of, say, telehealth visits, etc. Our schools, businesses, our seniors who traditionally may not have been utilizing these technologies. We want to make sure that everyone is, brought up to speed on the use of these technologies. That particular grant that you're speaking to, Councilman Hugo, is to help educate the public on that use. So there will be funds for us to help educate and train the public so that they're in a position to actually use the technology, so that nobody gets left behind.
Okay, and this says that I guess we're going to have that assembled by the end of June. And
Yes, sir.
so once we got it assembled, how are we going to get it out to the people that we hope will use it?
So we're working along with public communications, and marketing, Peter Glagola and his team, as well as economic development. And so we'll be working together in order to get that information out to the public, scheduling opportunities with civic leagues and the other community organizations.
And is the value in that for the average residential user, or is the value for business users in Portsmouth?
Yes. So both.
Okay.
So I just keep in mind, the original $25,000 that was applied for was just to build the plan. Once the plan is done, by end of June, that plan is going to be submitted to DHCD, and if it's approved, then the different programs that we have under that plan will then get funded. So that's kind of how it works. So it's not going to happen in June. It's going to happen after, a couple months after, they're going to award the funds for the plan.
Okay, I thought I understood what you were doing right until you said what you just said. So we're
So okay, so they were fortunate
and
enough.
there are things in the plan that we will then, as a city, intend to implement. And we
Yes.
can go back and ask for more grant money to implement those things?
So the original $25,000 that you guys approved, City Council approved, was to put together the plan, do some marketing, get everybody together and say, okay, we're going to do a telemedicine program that's going to involve this, this, and this. And that's what the application is. So there's another application that's going to be ready in June that will detail about 4 different programs that will get funded.
Funded by?
DHCD and the capacity grant.
And so you all fill out the grant for each of those opportunities, looking for some additional
Exactly.
DHCD.
Special programs, yeah. It could be marketing, you know, it
Okay.
could be, yeah.
All right.
And we get word of other opportunities every day. In fact, we just received another one. I think the manager sent to us, all department heads, asking how we might be able to, apply for other funds. And that particular one that he sent out and asked, we saw how that could actually fit our infrastructure needs here in the city. So there are opportunities that come every day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So my question goes back just to the timeline. So I know about a year ago when we were discussing that Portsmouth was pretty much the front runner when it comes to the completion of the ring amongst the region. And I know I went to a meeting a couple weeks ago where now you're starting to hear more conversation about this regional ring. And so do we have to wait for the rest of the region to catch up before we go live so we can start as soon as Portsmouth?
We're not waiting on the rest for that regional ring. We're not waiting for that. It's just that was a part of the original agreement that one day we'll be able to use that as leverage and get access to those subsea cables off the coast of Virginia Beach. But we're not waiting for that. We're going ahead and lighting up where we can certain community anchor institutions right now.
Okay, good. So is it like a timeline of when we plan on having all 56 sites?
Yeah, like I said, that number was,
20.
like I was saying, the number is 120.
Yeah.
But we're going to provide that plan,
Plan for the plan.
the plan for the plan.
All right, sounds good.
I had a follow-up question about the last mile, the providers here. Is that the fiber that, let's say Cox was awarded by zip code, is that proprietary fiber that they're going in? Am I now locked into Cox as my provider if I want to make use of how they're linked to the ring? Is that the way it would work?
No, it's, so if Cox, it fosters competition. So if Cox says, there's X amount of zip codes that they get, there may be 15 homes in that area, they'll run fiber to it, and that's their fiber that but there's going to be other providers there too that actually will be able to, so if you don't want Cox and you got Verizon will probably have fiber in the area.
So everybody has to run their own fiber?
Everybody has to run their own fiber, yeah.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before, again, you're talking those three applying for the BEAD funding, but there are a bunch of others, irrespective of the BEAD funding, they're just hopping in, they're investing now in the network. We have a couple, I think they have applications with the city now that are just going ahead and build, even without trying to apply for any state or federal funding to go along with that. So they see the need, if you will.
Okay.
The demand is there.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, on page 15, you identified 3 sites that are currently connected. How long did it take for those 3 sites, and how much did it cost the city to get those 3 sites up?
So you're talking I can get the answer to the cost for those and provide that to the authority members. I can do that, provide that, get back to you on what those numbers are. But 306 High Street, where the police administration building is, our EOC, and our fire administration building. And then the third one was
Get there in a minute.
700 Port Center, where there's more public safety operations going on there.
How long did it take to install those 3 sites?
Well, each one of them was a different process in order to get that done. I can get back to you on that number for each one of them. I'll provide that to you.
All right, the reason I was asking, I do see part of the plan is to put on another batch of sites. I was just trying to get an idea, once you figure out the batch of sites, timeline, and I guess that is the plan for the plan, right? So
It has a lot to do with how much fiber you have to run. If there's conduit there, I mean, you're taking the fiber from your NGN and you're running it to a building, And if like the police buildings will require dual entry, connections, so you don't, if one fails, you have another connection. So there's a lot more planning there. If like a library, you just take one feed going in, you don't need that much, but you have to understand how much fiber you need to get to it, the equipment that needs to go into the building. And so each building can have a different cost that's associated with it. That's why there's some engineering that goes into the whole plan, for the plan.
All right. Plan for the plan. And final question, I guess, would any of the ISPs connect to our fiber backbone? Would that ever happen, or is that something that we would just exclusively use with businesses and, I guess, individuals in the locality?
So the idea, we do have extra strands that we will be marketing, and through our Economic Development Authority, be trying to offer some of those extra capacity for their own investment, or lease the strands that we have to them. And that might be advantageous to an ISP.
All right.
They don't want to literally build out, but rather use the strands that we already have available.
All right, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you.
I assume there's no reason for a closed session.
Not today.
Okay. I really want to do that. I like reading that. Save the chance to read. Next meeting looks like it's scheduled for June 10th at 4 p.m. Let you know if that changes. The Secretary, were there any?
We have no public speakers.
All right.
Any other new business?
So just one quick item. Those of you who have contacts who are either stakeholders or technicians, there's at least one current member, maybe two current members that are looking for some people like you to sit in these seats instead of us. So if you have friends that you can coax into submitting their application to the clerk, go for it.
At least we can tell them they don't have to be an officer their first meeting.
No, we will make sure we give them a made-up officer position. Why not?
Nothing else, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.